Peace, everybody. Peace, everybody. Come on in, sit down, find that comfy spot, and get ready for episode 2 of Changing Life on the Spectrum. I'm Brother James.
And I'm Nicole.
And today we're going to talk to you about the assessment process. After you have got the diagnosis, now it's time to take your child in so they can be thoroughly assessed so you'll know what category your child may be in, mild, moderate, or severe. So I'll let Nicole go ahead and take us further.
So as we said in the last video, we got the diagnosis from the public school system where our son was going to be attending school. And we definitely wanted to get our own assessment done. So we got an independent evaluation done. And in choosing where to go, we had to think about, what part of town we might be willing to go to for multiple visits. We didn't know if we were going to have to go to the assessment facility more than once. So making sure it was in a convenient part of town. Both of us were working full time at the time. So
Right.
we did not want to have to be going through a lot of traffic and rush hour, especially taking our son through this process. We wanted to make sure that we were able to be as calm as possible and keep him as calm as possible. So we chose a facility that was close to us in proximity to our home. And we ended up going with Mount Washington Pediatric Hospital. I think we had both heard some things about like Kennedy Krieger and
Right.
maybe Johns Hopkins, but decided that Mount Washington was the best place to go. And we also had a gut feeling that, that would be the best place to do the assessment. So that's where we decided to go.
And family, go with your gut feeling. Because again, you don't know how long a process is going to be, and you want to make sure that you feel good about where you're taking your child and where you think your child is going to be most comfortable, as well as yourself, as well as everybody knows you want to choose the best that you can afford, but definitely make sure that you feel good in your gut about the decision that you're going to make, because again, as Nicole said, you don't know exactly how long the process might take, and again, you want to be comfortable and be able to keep your child comfortable.
Yes, and it was also a good thing that they also had free parking, so that was another perk.
Yeah.
Plenty of parking available right at the facility, not a lot of walking, and the parking was free. So
Right, and the staff was good. It was definitely a good feeling walking into there, because it was a lot of people, but not an overly lot of people there. And they also had things set up for the children so that they could play games, read books, watch TV,
right,
and do different things to keep them occupied. Because you don't want their anxiety levels to go up while
Right.
you're there.
right. So overall, it gave us a calm feeling when we walked in the door, that we were in a calm and safe environment.
Right.
So, but even before that, just backing up a little bit, we made the appointment. But again, it took a while. It took months to be able to get in. Thankfully, there was a cancellation, so we were able to get in a little bit sooner than they originally thought we would. But it was still a wait.
Right.
And then in the meantime, we had a lot of paperwork to fill out. Not only paperwork for us, but also for his teacher,
Right.
at daycare.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot.
Yes, be ready. Have a box of pencils and pens ready, because that paperwork is thick.
Yes.
It's a lot of detailed questions, and if you especially are married, make sure y'all on good speaking terms, because you're going to have to look at each other and be like, do you know? What do you think? Well, I don't know. But I think,
Yeah.
and it's, especially um, when it's a thing of you have multiple children. So there were different points as the other children came where we definitely had to look at each other and try to figure it out because one of us spent a little more time with that particular child than maybe the other child. So it's like you really
Right.
have to lean on each other to try to answer these questions. And I'm telling you, very detailed
Yes.
questions.
Yes. And we tried, I think, originally to divide and conquer, but that was not the way to go. Because again, maybe my husband did some things with our son that I didn't necessarily do as much. So we did have to ask each other questions, and it was a lot of asking the same or similar questions over and over again,
Right.
just using different
Just right,
words.
just rewording it and asking it. Just I don't know why, but that's what they did. It was a lot of repetitiveness, and also you have to take into consideration male and females don't think alike. So that's why you definitely need to talk to each other if you're in a situation where both of you are taking care of the child, because what a female might see, a male might not even pay attention to, and vice versa. So you definitely want to make sure you come together and you go over the questions. And like I said, for the most part, you're gonna have to, because all the rewording is definitely going to catch you off guard. Like, wait a minute, didn't we just answer that question? Well, no, they said.
And then you're also rating it on a scale. Like, they want to know if they never do this, if they
Right.
do it sometimes, if they do it all the time.
And that's the killer.
Right.
That's the killer. Because
So
you
it's
just
kind of like, well, he does it a lot, but is it almost always? No, not quite. So, it's
right.
it can be
Yes.
very subjective,
Very
and
much
if
so.
the parents aren't on the same page as far as the scale of it, then,
Absolutely.
you're splitting hairs in some cases.
Most definitely. And especially since, again, depending on the time that each parent spends, you're possibly seeing different things. So she might be like, yeah, he's doing it all the time. But I'll be like, well, with me, he does it every now and again. So now you got to try to figure out what's supposed to be the in between.
Right. Right. And then, of course, like we said, you have to get the teacher, your daycare provider or nursery school teacher or preschool teacher to fill out the paperwork as well, from their vantage point.
Right.
And again, they're only going to be able to speak from the time that they're with them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But and
So,
and that's why it's going to be best to always keep a good rapport with your teachers, with the principal staff, and so on and so forth, whatever aides that may come into play as well. Because you might need everybody's opinion, and again, everybody's seeing a different side.
right.
So, in other words, you need your team together.
Now, surprisingly, they did not ask for input from the pediatrician. So, and when we mentioned it to our pediatrician at the time, they didn't see it. So,
Right. They never see it when you're at the actual doctor's office. It doesn't really show up then.
and I mean, I can understand that because they're only there for a few minutes. They're
Right.
not even there most times for 30 minutes, even. So, they're not going to see a lot.
Right.
And they only see your child, by that age, maybe once a year. I think our son was 3 at the time,
Right.
or about to turn 3. They weren't seeing him that much, or for long periods of time. So, and our son didn't really get sick often, so we were not there very much. So they didn't have really an opportunity to observe them, or observe our son in different scenarios and different situations.
Right.
That's another thing they're going to ask you on those forms: how your child interacts with other children. And for us, we didn't really have any family or friends that had children at that young age.
Right.
So we didn't really get to see him interacting with other children. that would have been something that the daycare provider had to answer. So,
Right.
can you think of anything else about that part of it?
No, not really. I mean, the main thing is just the one thing you will never forget is that paperwork.
Yes,
That
yes.
paperwork is horrendous, and you will be racking your brain for a minute.
Hmm.
Especially some questions that almost seem philosophical, and you're just like, well, what? But it could. And like Nicole was saying, they give you choices, but sometimes even the choices is not but so accurate. So you just trying to figure out between which two. Well, I guess we'll choose that one. And so
Right,
I would never forget that part of it.
right.
And seeing that packet,
Yep.
woo.
Yeah. So, and also, if there are any things that you want to remember to ask the person doing the assessment, or anything that your child does that you didn't necessarily see covered in those hundreds of questions that you'll be asked, because there are hundreds of them,
Right.
um, I would suggest, writing that down, making a note of that so
Mm-hmm.
that you can have that with you, because you're going to forget the day of. You're going to forget because
Right.
you're going to be a little bit overwhelmed with everything that's going on and trying to pay attention and asking questions about what types of tests they're going to be doing. They will tell you, but you may still have questions. So be sure to ask those questions
Right.
at that time.
Right. Definitely make sure you come with whatever your list is. Definitely because of the fact that you want to get it addressed as fast as possible, and who best to ask than the people who are assessing your child that are supposed to be trained to see certain things. And they they would be some of the best people who are trained to have a better idea as to what you're talking about and be like, okay, well, that sounds like.
Right.
Does he do this or that also? Have you seen this to go along with that? So you get a better assessment, and that's the best time to ask questions, and that's the best time to get more accurate answers from someone who's based in studying and understanding your child's behavior and
Right.
giving you a good assessment as to what's going on.
Right. So make sure you take a notebook and a pen or a pencil with you so you can take notes, because you're not going to remember.
Most definitely.
It's a very overwhelming process. And these are not going to be people that you're going to be seeing again, really.
Right.
They're not people that are going to like remain involved in your child's life, like a therapist or their pediatrician. This is, you go, you get the assessment, and that's pretty much it. But you're also going to have to be able to understand the testing and what's being assessed enough to be able to discuss it when you go back to the county and give them a copy, because you're going to want to give them a copy as well.
Right.
So ask for an extra copy if you need it. You will need it, so ask for extra copies. Or you will be at Staples making extra copies or scanning it somehow into the computer, but you will need it. So you're going to need to be able to know enough about these tests so that you can talk about them during these meetings with the school and discussing what accommodations your child will need.
Right. And again, definitely take advantage of asking them. Don't be shy. Don't be coy. As they're going over the assessment with you, if you don't understand, make sure you ask them to clarify. Well, what does that mean? Because sometimes you get starstruck to a degree, because just like, whoa, it's just so much happening. What is all this? And you know how collegiate people are. They start to throw big terms and names at you. And you're just like, what? I don't even, what does that mean? If and so don't look at it as, well, I don't want them to think that I'm stupid or something. No, 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 no. This is your child.
Right.
You have to ask questions if you don't understand something.
Right.
If it doesn't make sense, then you need to ask.
And ask them for a business card. with their phone number and email address,
Right.
just in case there's something that comes up later. Or you may even possibly need to see if they can attend a meeting with you at the school. Now, not all assessors offer that as an option, but some do. And don't be afraid to ask.
Right. Because there will be they will be some of the best people to have on your team at that time because they know what they're talking about. They actually spent time with your child, so they observe the thing. So and because they are looked at as like clinical doctors and so on and so forth, their word carries a lot more weight in these meetings. And so therefore, if when you get things, the waters get a little muddy, they can help you clear it up a little bit in a faster fashion. So yeah, you definitely want to make sure, if you can, check and ask, see if they can come to the IEP meetings, um, those first IEP meetings.
But be sure to ask if there are additional fees involved. Because
Yeah.
while the health insurance will pay for the assessment, the health insurance isn't necessarily going to pay for them to get involved in the educational portion or the academic portion of your child's learning. That's not normally something that's covered. So you want to ask ahead of time, is there going to be a fee?
Right.
So you don't want to be surprised by that at the last minute. I think that's pretty much everything for that part as far as choosing and like going through the assessment process. There is a lot of waiting, so you may want to bring a child's favorite toy
Right.
or a snack or something to try to keep the child occupied. Make sure you have a change of clothes just in case. Make sure you know where the restroom is in case they need to go to the restroom.
And definitely, if you have Reiki, make sure you use it on your child before you go.
And yourself.
And you're right. Yes, yes, yes. Definitely yourself too, because both of you need to be able to woosah
Yeah.
and stay calm because of the fact that there can be a lot of in and out.
Yeah.
Where they're assessing for a certain amount of time, then they want to give him a break or her a break, then you're right back in. Sometimes then they call you in, so you got to be ready to again ask questions, try to understand what's going on, and then know where you got to go after the assessment. But the assessment process, yeah, you need to be ready. If you are a person who meditates, please, please, please meditate.
Yeah.
Because it's an ordeal.
And make sure you've had something to eat that morning because it's going to be a long day.
Right.
Don't think that you're maybe going to split the day and maybe try to go to work in the afternoon or take them to school in the afternoon. It's a lot. Give yourself and the child a break and just let this be the one thing that you're focused on for that day.
Most definitely. Because your mind will be clouded and crowded and a whole bunch of thoughts going in different directions. And as you hear the assessment, you got to be ready because autism is a spectrum disorder. You don't know how many things are going to end up being thrown at you.
Right.
It's a spectrum. So what you see, there could be stuff going on even further than that. Case in point, McKeel was assessed at moderate autism, but then we also found out he had ADHD as well.
Right.
So
and that came later though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that came later. That he's been assessed twice so far.
Right.
So the first assessment was the the autism, and it was moderate. We had him assessed the second time, and then that was when the ADHD was also diagnosed. It seems like at younger ages they don't necessarily want to definitively say that they have ADHD. They seem to want to wait until a little bit later to do that.
Right.
In our experience at least. But yes, even though we had gotten the original diagnosis from the school system, sitting in the room getting the results from them, having them confirm it, and give us a level, because autism is usually diagnosed on a spectrum of mild, moderate, or severe. And it still felt like a gut punch.
Right. Because again, you don't know. You're hoping for mild, but you don't know exactly what you're going to get at the end of the process until they've gone through the process. And again, you're dealing with people who professionally know the criterion, but you don't.
Right.
So again, what you're saying, oh well, he just got a little teeny bit of quirk, so she just has the little things. But then when you get the breakdown, it could be a completely different story. You're like, what? No, wait a minute, what? You know what I mean? You'll catch yourself doing that a couple of times
Right.
because it could be more going on than what you can see.
Right.
So,
And they're going to hand you a very lengthy report,
mm-hmm.
No less than 10 pages, possibly 15 pages, maybe 20. But it's a lot because they have put in the report everything that you have told them in the intake process, everything that was a result of the forms that you completed, everything that was a result of what they observed while they were actually assessing your child in person. So all of that is in the report. Everything from how my pregnancy went, were there any complications during the pregnancy, during the delivery, all of that was in the report.
And remember that once you get that report, again, we definitely want you to make sure you understand it, because remember, you now have to translate it to your team. So now your team can adequately deal with the situation because everybody is armed. Everybody knows, okay, it's this, they said that, they said this, that, and the other, and this is how we're going to deal with it. And so if Johnny starts doing so and so forth, then this is how we handle it. Because everybody needs to be on the same page, because children of the spectrum don't like change. So it works against them if they go to grandma's house and it's totally different rules over there. Then they go to Uncle Johnny's house and it's totally different rules over there. They can end up shutting down. They can end up having outbursts. But if everybody's on the same same line of mind, thought, then we can handle it the right way, and then you can teach and train your team how to deal with your child, so your child gets comfortable because
Right.
it knows what it's going to expect wherever it goes.
Right. And being that we only used Mount Washington Pediatric Hospital, I don't know what every report looks like, but for the reports that we received, again, they go through the background from the time that the child was in utero, and they go through any other medical conditions or procedures that the child may have had thus far up to that point. They go through all of the assessments, all the paperwork you filled out. And they also go through any paperwork that the teacher may have filled out for you.
Right.
And then they go over the testing and the results of each test that they did.
Right.
Then they give you the diagnosis. Then the report goes on to give recommendations for the academic or school environment. Next, the report went over recommendations for the parents and family and what to do at home. Then it goes on to, at the end, give you a long list of resources and organizations that you can reach out to.
So you have to make sure that you do your due diligence to go over it. First of all, let's be honest and keep it 100. You're going to have to give yourself some time to process this whole situation. Just the assessment day is a tremendous trial, but the days afterwards are also trials, because now you need to intake this information, process it, who can do what, how can we do this, that, and the other, so forth and so on. But you have to do it. You don't want to put it off, because the more you take advantage of the situation, the better off you and your child will be. So you want to definitely go through it as best as you can, and make sure that you take advantage of whatever notes they put in, especially for whatever help you may need, because there's a lot of little things that's out there,
Right.
but you can miss it if you don't, just not paying attention enough.
Right. And while they will be meeting with you that day or on a different day, it could be a different day as well.
Right.
But while they're meeting with you to give you the diagnosis, you're not really taking in everything that they are saying.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot really look through the report thoroughly.
Right.
And they're only summarizing. They're not going through everything. So again, you will need to look at that report once you get it home. Do not take it home and stick it in a drawer or stick it in a folder and not look at it. You need to read it from beginning to end in its entirety and write down any questions you have so that you can call or email the person back with any questions that you may have.
Right, because this is what's going to help you to forge ahead, to begin to plan your child's future, your future, so this can make or break you just as much as your child, because you want to make your right decisions that's going to help them to increasingly help themselves to get better. And it's up to us. We're the parents, so it's up to us to do it. Obviously your child is not going to do it for themselves.
Right. So we kept a copy of the report. We gave a copy to our pediatrician for his medical records. We made sure that we had a copy for the school.
Right. Absolutely.
The pediatrician did have referrals for us for therapy. So for occupational therapy, speech therapy, they gave us a local provider that we could contact, and we reached out to them. They also needed a copy of the report. Thankfully, we were able to just give them the report, and they made their own copy and gave us our original back. But you want to make sure that you also have an electronic version of the report as well. So ask them, ask the assessors if they will email a copy to you as well, so that you can have it electronically, because it'll come in very handy to be able to email it to the school if they need it, or if anyone else needs it as well. So
right, because you may need to pull from it at different points in time. Again, just to be able to forge ahead and plan ahead.
Yes. Now, I do have to say that, in our situation, the school had given us the diagnosis first, and, we were able to give them a copy of the report. But there are instances where the school does not necessarily have to accept the report from an independent evaluation. They still may want to do their own evaluation if they have not already done one. And in that case, it can sometimes delay the services that your child will receive in school. Thankfully, we got our results from the school first. So our son was able to start school pretty much as soon as he turned 3. I think the same week, actually, that he turned 3, he started.
Anything else?
No, I think that's pretty much it for that part. I think in a separate video we can go over, when we started getting therapy and taking advantage of the resources that we saw in the report.
Right. So that pretty much concludes what happened with us. Of course, your story could be a little different, because every child is different. But that's pretty much the process. You choose where to get assessed. You go get your assessment, make sure you're ready for it, try to get your child ready for it, and then you you got to be ready to get that full assessment and then be ready to hit the ground running by studying it again to forge ahead.
Yes.
And that's the main thing. And that's how you change life on the spectrum, by taking care of business, getting your assessment, studying it, and then using the resources that come along with it to help your child.
Yes. And we just want to make sure that we note that we are not medical providers and we are not offering any legal advice. We're simply offering or sharing our journey as parents with children on the spectrum.
And with that, we say thank you for listening, and we'll greet you with peace. Peace.
Bye.
Peace, everybody. We thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. And we thank you for tuning in and giving us your time and energy for changing life on the spectrum. If you would like to leave us an email because there's something you want to see on the show or any information that you may need or want to request, go to changinglifeonthespectrum@gmail.com and just drop us an email. And if you want to support the show, we ask you to support the nonprofit that brings you the show, which is McKeel's Path for Artistic Triumph, by going to www.mpfat.org and hitting that donate button so that we can continue to help our families dealing with autism, and we can continue to help them by changing life on the spectrum. Thank you and peace.